There are people who won't get vaccinated, and not necessarily through a personal or political choice. There are medical reasons. There are a broad range of reasons why someone might not get vaccinated. And I'm worried about creating knock-on undesirable effects in our community. I think the indications that the vast majority of Canadians are looking to get vaccinated will get us to a good place without having to take more extreme measures that could have real divisive impacts.
We will create a $1 billion COVID-19 proof of vaccination fund. So if your premier, wherever you are across the country, if your premier mandates that everyone in your local restaurant or gym or other non-essential locations must be fully vaccinated and show proof, we'll pay for the development and rollout of that program.
So I'm confused. He seems awfully earnest and sincere in the first video from February, where he's talking about how he worries about vaccine mandates. But then he seems equally sincere and earnest when he's talking about how much he likes them. Geez, I wonder what could have happened. I don't know, maybe it's this. Majority of Canadians support mandatory vaccinations. That is from August 5th. And if there's one thing we've learned about polls in the last, half a decade, it's that they're often wrong, and often quite wrong. But in any case, this came out. More than half of Canadians agree with mandatory vaccinations for people who can be vaccinated to stop the spread of COVID-19 variants, according to a new poll from Nanos Research. And it says here for people who can be vaccinated. So I guess that must mean there's going to be exemptions, right? Oops. Let's see. This is from August 23rd, 2021. No medical or religious exemptions for BC's vaccine passport system. Let's see. People who can't get vaccinated against COVID-19 for medical reasons won't be exempted from BC's upcoming vaccine passport system, nor will those who choose to not get immunized for religious reasons. Provincial Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry said those individuals will have to miss out on discretionary services and activities, such as dining in restaurants and attending live sporting events, until the proof of vaccination requirement is lifted next year. And she had something very comforting to say here, quote, "This is a temporary measure that's getting us through a risky period where we know people who are unvaccinated are at greater risk, both of contracting and spreading this virus," Henry said on Monday. So a temporary measure, where have I heard that before? Just going to interrupt for 1 second to say if you like this content, subscribe so you can see more. Thanks a lot. And of course in this it makes no distinction between people who have had it and recovered, had the virus and recovered, and people who have not. Which would seem to be kind of important, wouldn't it? But anyway, the poll commissioned by CTV News shows 53% support the premise, another 21% somewhat support it, while 16% oppose it, 8% somewhat oppose it, and 2% remain unsure. Now, it should be said that the Canadian public has become much more conformist in recent years. And I don't know if that has something to do with the mainstream media in Canada being subsidized by the Trudeau government. But still, we've seen polls be very wrong in the last half a decade. We have, going back to Brexit. But that doesn't mean that this poll is wrong. But if you're looking for a reason why Trudeau would be very earnest and sincere on one position, and then be equally earnest and sincere on the opposite position shortly afterwards, well, here's something to look at. And of course, that poll is shortly before Trudeau calls a snap election. So I'm sure they're not connected in any way. But, judging from that poll, and there has since been another poll which is even more favorable to vaccine passports. But seeing that, you would see that, this election is obviously going to go very well for Trudeau. Except, Conservatives surge, Liberals slide. So the latest 338 projection shows the Liberals falling 2 seats per day since the campaign began. The Conservatives are the new favorites. Well, the last poll I saw, they're basically neck and neck. That's from August 29th, 2021. It was another difficult week for Justin Trudeau's Liberals in public opinion polls. The trends we observed in the first week of this short campaign continued and even intensified in the second week, with support for the Liberals in a downward spiral in key regions of Canada. Several polls now show the Conservatives have taken the lead in voting intentions in the country. In the latest seat projections, Conservatives and Liberals may now stand neck in neck, but the all-important momentum of this campaign is clearly on the side of Erin O'Toole's team. Now, Erin O'Toole is not pro-vaccine mandates. Let's see what state propaganda network CBC has to say about it. Trudeau has tried to present himself as a vaccine champion on the campaign trail, routinely pillorying his main opponent, Conservative leader Erin O'Toole, for opposing vaccine mandates for federal public servants and the traveling public. O'Toole hasn't forced his candidates to get vaccinated, something Trudeau has said puts voters at risk. Except, oopsie, maybe Trudeau wasn't being totally, earnest and sincere. Not all Liberal campaigning candidates are vaccinated. Not all Liberal candidates campaigning have been fully vaccinated, Liberal leader Justin Trudeau has admitted, despite his party's push for mandatory vaccines as an election promise. But that brings us back to this surge by Erin O'Toole and the Conservative Party. And considering that polling, as we've seen, tends to favor whatever is further left. So what does it all mean in the end in terms of the election? I have to say, it does seem strange, considering the polling about vaccines, that the guy who's not for making them mandatory would surge. And what we might see at the end of the election cycle is a very, very motivated Conservative base. Now, none of this speaks to the constitutional aspect of whether any of this Trudeau promising $1 billion to help provinces pay for passports. None of this speaks to whether or not it's even constitutional, if it's even lawful. Now, in the description for this video, I've included a link to a Viva Frei video, which discusses that topic, I think, very well. And I encourage you to check it out. Anyway, that's all I've got to say about that. Please subscribe, like, and share. That really helps me out. If you'd just like to listen, there's the podcast, Radio Baloney. It's on pretty much every platform. If you look for it, you will find it. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time.